turning on the. Be good. All right, welcome back to week 2 of the Tony Mack Show, Whiteboard Wednesdays with Coach Manny, Coach Pat, Coach Jeremy, and we got Coach Brandon back from a week off last week. So we're looking forward to going through a lot of questions this week again, just giving our state of basketball. And we sat down and had a discussion on some of the things that were going on in basketball and came up with some great topics for today. And want to kick it off with basically, I don't know if everyone saw it this week, but there's been a lot of injuries in basketball this year, and a lot of serious injuries. And just want to kind of start in on that. And I don't want to talk exact specifics in terms of some of the gruesomeness of injuries, but let's just go around the table. And Manny, why do you think that there's so many injuries this year, or what appears to be so many more injuries?
Right. I think this conversation where I'm talking to these guys before, my friends, and I always come back to I don't think basketball is supposed to be played the way it is today. All sports, and then what I mean by that is these days everybody is so much more explosive. People are just stronger. I've talked to people that said people are now stronger these days due to our health and our diet that we have than they were a few years ago. And just the force that people play with these days, I'm not sure if our human body was supposed to, Jay, I think we talked about this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if the body is supposed to be put through so much force and tug and wear. And so, obviously, we don't know the exact reason, but I feel that's a lot to do with it.
Yeah. What do you think, Pat?
I think a lot of it also adds on to what Manny was saying is just the way the game is played nowadays is a lot faster pace and just the force that the players generate from how athletic they are, how powerful they are. I think a bit of it also has to do with as well as the amount of time that these players are putting into the game, and also not realizing the importance of actually the cool down. Getting in there, stretching, using the therapy that they might have access to. For example, here at AI, we have the Normatec boots, using the recovery systems that they might have available to them. A lot of players just like to come on and off the court and then go back to doing the same thing that they just left off doing. So a lot of the times, I think that might have to do a little bit to the injuries that they come by later on in their career.
Do you guys think, I'm going to throw it to this side of the table, do you think that some of the injuries are due to the fact that, it's all year intensive training. It's kind of do or die. You got to stay essentially relevant, stay ahead. There's not adequate rest, that these players are taking. Can that attribute to some of these injuries we're seeing? Jeremy?
I think rest plays a big part. I think, especially I want to say I'm 28 now, so in my
old.
In my later high school years, my early college years, when Meek Mill first came out, and this, and Wale, and this no days off, and this grind deal of just always going, and then discovering through education that rest is as vital as going to the sand dunes and lifting weights and getting your shots. And I think kids are stuck in kids are even Isaiah Thomas stay paranoid the people they look up to have these mantras that speak to just always going and never really resting, and they don't see the value in the rest part. And now through education, you realize that rest is actually one of the bigger parts of doing it. So and I think we just lack just from a mental standpoint, as far as kids being in the classroom off 4 or 5 hours of sleep because they up all night playing Fortnite, then going to practice, because when you listen and you learn, that's a physical thing that takes energy. So it ain't you just sitting there it takes energy to be an active listener. And I just think the rest part is really missed. This whole ordeal of kids developing and trying to become who they want to become.
I see it all the time. Obviously, we all live in the gym, but it's kids that really, they think that it's the duration of time that they spend in the gym, and it's basically quantity over quality with these kids, so that they could go back and say, hey, I was in the gym for 5 hours today. Mm-hmm. It's really, you could have been in and out of here in a good hour and a half at the most with everything that you needed and still been able to do a lot of things different. From a training perspective, Brandon, how do you approach these guys that want to spend 5 hours in here versus trying to get them to believe in a good night rest, eating properly, and then working out hard for shorter periods. What's your take on that?
For me, it's really all about balance. Just knowing when to really go intense in workouts, when to go light in workouts, and then knowing when to rest, because our body can only take so much as human beings. So therefore, we have to be able to put together a schedule with players and all athletes where it's like, okay, on these specific days, this is when we're going to go hard as ever, and then on the following day will be a lighter day, shooting, light ball handling, something like that. Because if you just keep working muscles continuously to the bone, they're going to tire out, and that's what causes injury. And that's what I've learned from Christian Vargas. He's someone that helped me out as far as sports science goes, and you just have to learn how to balance that out. You want to work out, but you don't need 4 to 5 hours of just killing your entire body. I like to compress my workouts into about maybe at the minimum 45 minutes up to about an hour and a half, maximum 2 hours if I get carried away with a lot of reps. But as far as that goes, just making sure we work out hard, but we also get a good amount of rest as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think we emphasize that all the time, and I think kids that are starting to come off their high school season and now going into their AAU season, I think it's so important. But you start to see, is the number of games a factor? You're seeing a ton of reports now from the NBA. So-and-so's out for the season. So-and-so's done for the year. Is there, in your opinion, quickly around the table, too many games in the NBA right now?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Why is it?
Because if you really think about it, 82 games, and some weeks you're playing 3 games, and then if you're one of the top teams, you got playoffs. And then let's say, worst case scenario, you're playing Game 7 every single series. That's well over 100 games, and that's a lot of wear and tear on your body. And in my opinion, I think they should cut back on games, especially in the NBA, just for the fact of safety. Because now teams are suffering because a lot of players are hurt and damaged, and you don't know, and it's kind of hurting their careers at the same time.
I'm gonna go, Jeremy. I mean, the number of games is based on the ability to obviously create revenue to be able to pay these salaries. And every time NBA players step on the court, it's basically like going to a Broadway show, so to speak. Is the risk and the reward in terms of what I mean by that is, if all these players are hurt and no one's playing and people are buying tickets, is it really worth injuring these players in an attempt to play an extra 10 or 15 games if those players that you bought tickets to watch are actually not playing because they're injured anyways, or resting in preparation for the playoffs?
Right. I think the league, as far as the coaches and the player, I think they're showing you that it's too many games. The fact that this whole rest deal is become between Popovich resting his guys and LeBron taking nights off and guys just taking nights off. They're showing you that it's too many games, in their opinion, through their actions. And I think the NBA, again, is a business, and they have to do what they feel is right for their business. But as far as their product, I mean, you got to take care of that too. So I think there's a fine line, and I'm sure Chris Paul and Malcolm Brogdon, who lead the NBA PA, I assume will talk about it if they haven't already.
Coming up soon.
So, it's coming up soon. So I mean, I think it's a good topic of discussion for them to have.
With that being said, we're going to move kind of now from the NBA perspective right back down to our second topic, which is state of youth basketball. And I think around the table we kind of have a group of guys that deal at multiple levels. And I'm going to start off again, Pat, on this side of the table of where are we in youth basketball? Where are we trying to go? And what are the trends? What are you seeing out there? And just what's happening at the younger ages right now?
I think right now what we see a lot of in youth basketball is, I think, really the social media trend. What today is new, exciting, and fun, and is getting the most views. I feel like that's what kids are really, catching on to the most. For example, looking at Isaiah Washington, what he started last year with, jelly, and now kids are starting to finish at the basket a lot differently. And I think it's taken away a little bit from the game, from allowing kids to learn at a fundamental level, really understand the game the way it's supposed to be played, versus, a guy like that who started that type of finish has been working on his game for years now, and is at a certain level where he's developed the opportunity to be able to do that day in and day out. But I also think from a youth perspective, I think the game is a lot more advanced than it was before. You're getting to see teams, coaches, players start to take a lot newer approaches. I think the game has gotten a lot faster. Coaches are starting to throw in a lot more concepts and of the game, especially from a defense perspective. Last week on the weekend, I got to see a little bit of provincial basketball. It was U11, and every team was pretty much, as the topic we were talking about last week, every team was playing zone. So I think that it was kind of an interesting thing to see and take in. But as much as we kind of had that argument last week, man versus zone, and what we think is best, I think it's also it's good to see that coaches are taking a different approach, trying to add more to these kids' arsenal, make them think on a new level. But I think that just kids' development is kind of being slowed down a little bit just because of the trends of social media today. I think that kids are just seeing what's cool, what's now, but not locking into and holding on to what is long term, the macro kind of side of things.
Coming out of that, I'm going to come to this side of the table because Jeremy, I mean, you got to see the culture of basketball in LA growing up and through the years, and you come here. I'm going to combine some of our questions kind of in regards to where we go with this, but are kids just jumping ship? Are kids moving from team to team? What's really happening? Let's say at the AAU level right now, where you got kids that literally could open up a Canadian basketball history Hall of Fame with the number of jerseys they have for AAU. Is that are we just playing catch up in Canada? Is that how it is, or is it just kind of based on trends and go to the next spot?
I think as far as the state, I think we're in a weird space right now. I think kids are putting values in the wrong things. I think they're not guided appropriately. But then when you think about it, like who they're guided by, is like, well, if the person who's guiding them, are they even educated about how this thing is really supposed to go and what it's supposed to look like? Like Pat mentions, Jelly Fam, like Isaiah Washington can go make 10 layups in a row regularly if he wanted to. Instagram is a snapshot of his workout.
Glimpses.
So you see Jelly Fam, but he can make 10 layups. This kid that picked up Instagram, sees his phone trying to do Jelly Fam, he can't make a layup. So it's like, I think kids just miss, there's this gap that kids miss, that and they try to fill it with stuff that's not right. And I think, again, like we talked about at Tone, like there probably does need to be like some type of educational seminar about how this thing should go and what it should look like and what kids should value, and even for these parents, how parents should value, how they should guide their kids and their young student athletes and direct them in ways that allow their student athlete to be successful. Not so that they can get on Instagram and their story looks like his story and his story looks like hers, and like that's just not the right way in my opinion. And I feel like I've been around the culture long enough to know, like, we didn't have Twitter and Instagram like that when I was in high school. This is 10 years ago, 10, 12 years ago.
For all of
and
us.
it's like,
They're aging themselves now.
yeah, but it's just like, man, it's different. And I think we'd be naive to feel like that it wouldn't change. I just think we have to roll the punches and somehow navigate them and put them on the right path while allowing kids to be kids, but giving them the education, like this is going to lead to that. And
What the path is,
what the
path is, and stare. Manny, NCAA changes to the recruiting calendar. I know we touched base on it a little bit last week, but does that impact the state of basketball here in Canada, or AAU versus high school, in your opinion, moving forward? And is the AAU more or less a weekend or two snapshot now versus a body of work that's going to happen on the high school level?
Absolutely. I think with just 2 live periods now, one being in April is coming up, and one in July. I mean, I think kids are putting a lot of value on it, and I think a lot of the value is actually coming from things that like are outside of basketball, because they come with things like, kids these days, I guess we'll say the word clout, playing on a large platform. Some kids are truthfully not even ready for that platform, but they want to be on it just to say they did it. You know, they see it like on social media. They see it on social media. People are talking about these days, so you know they want to affiliate with that kind of stuff. But really, the bigger picture, you know, is at the end of the day, there's only 2 live periods now. So I think a lot of the emphasis should go back to high school basketball, and I think parents and kids should value, you know, where they're going to develop and where they're going to play for the remainder of those 8 months, and not just, you know, 2 weekends.
Brandon, you finding a trend with guys training in the state of basketball? I mean, what I always say to people is when I started, everyone was a coach. And when I say the state of basketball, we could go on all day about all the aspects of the state of basketball, the good, the bad. And we'll get into it, obviously, as the weeks go on and dig deeper into it. But when I was coming up and I started coaching, you know, you say 26 years ago or whatever. I started coaching 27, 28 years ago in this. And everyone that I was surrounded by wanted to be a coach. There wasn't these individual skill trainers. There wasn't these guys that were being paid to, you know, have a guy dribble 2, 3, 4, 5 balls at the same time. And, you know, I'm not disrespecting it. Everyone's got their lane and their purpose. But I'm finding the trend right now is that we're losing the coaching aspect, the guys that are holding kids accountable, and we're empowering those kids through people that are there that are essentially, I'm saying they're doing a good job, but they're also being paid to do a service of teaching that kid the skills of basketball. But then there's the missing gap, in my opinion, of applying those skills. And those skills might not be what that kid applies to his team. And so there's a constant search of how can I take what this guy's teaching me and be able to put it into a game with a coach that's just going to let me do whatever I want, not what I'm actually good at. And I think there's a constant search for that. And, you know, I to kind of go back to where I wanted to go with it is I don't think there's enough people coaching the game and holding kids accountable and correcting kids. I think we're empowering kids to do what they want, which goes back to, you know, I'm going to empower you to make a mixtape. I'm going to empower you to show a snapshot of what your skills are, but it doesn't give the longer picture of what a 32 or 40-minute game looks like with everything else that you need to work on. Do you think that that's impacting basketball in terms of the amount of trainers? I mean, you're a trainer. Is there something that this community needs to do to start to bring those trainers and the coaches together? And are we gonna get to a point where there's just no coaches and everyone's just a trainer?
Yeah, no, I definitely hear you on that, and I think what definitely has to happen is communication. So what I like to do is, like, if I don't have access to, you know, the coach himself or herself, I'll ask a player, you know, all right, so what is your role on the team? What is your position on the team? That kind of stuff. So then what I try to do is I'll try to base my workout on their skill set, and then I'll ask so based on the plays that you have, where are the spots that you look to score or look to create or make a decision and stuff like that. So then that way I'm trying to help. I'm helping the coach with their player and kind of like enhancing their skills based on their sets. But if I do have access to the coach, I'll call them up like, hey, so tell me, like, what is it that so-and-so needs to work on? What are they good at? And where do you see them, like, on the team and, like, their development, like, as far as, like, what they're able to do and stuff like that. And then that'll kind of, like, give me a foundation of how I base my workouts based on that specific player.
Moving into, I kind of led us into our next topic of young coaches. We got, although Jeremy seems to think he's old, we got a lot of young coaches around this table. Am I off base in saying that there's not a lot of guys that are coming up in this game that have a desire to be a coach? And what would be your advice to young guys coming up in this game to be engaged and help kind of bring us back to having real coaches, Manny?
Right. You know, as a young coach myself, you know, I'm obviously still learning every day. I don't got all the answers, you know, but just from speaking with some of my mentors and, you know, being fortunate to work here at AI for my first year, you know, I think it all goes back to being able to serve faithfully 100%. You know, like, as a young coach, it's all about a process, you know, and I think each day you got to come in to serve faithfully, as in, you know, so whatever you're asked to do, you got to kind of do it. And, you know, I think for young coaches, it's all about learning. You know, you can't kind of have an all-set agenda all the time. So I think if you just always constantly want to learn, you know, you'll become a better coach, which will obviously impact the players you're coaching at the end of the day.
Does social media thing, you know, when I look at younger kids, it's kind of a instant gratification. You could post something and get likes. You could post something and people think you're special. It's instant gratification. Do you think that, I mean, everyone around this table, I think coaching is a thankless job for the most part, underappreciated. You know, the vast majority of parents, you know, have expectations for their sons and have expectations on the way that they'd like to see you do what you do. Do you think that it's going to be harder and harder, you know, with this social media instant gratification, that work that you say needs to be put in, people are patient enough to put that work in to actually then see the fruits of their labor and their end goal? Pat?
I think touching on that is there's just a lack of being authentic. I think that, you know, nowadays with social media, there's a vast amount of trainer pages as well, and I think that's a huge reason why a lot of coaches, especially young guys, want to get into this game and this kind of a career path. They see, you know, the you know, for example, just hitting off a few guys like, you know, like a Chris Brickley, Tyler Ralph, DJ Sackman, you know, just a few guys to list off, Jordan Lawley, like just seeing those guys, the success that they're having, and it's such a quick pace within the past year, 2 years, even a guy like Handle Life. I think a lot of guys just see that instant success, and once again, you're getting it in glimpses, right? Minute clips max, sometimes under 30 seconds. So you're seeing, you know, that great message, seeing glimpses of being a great coach, a great trainer, a great person, not knocking those guys, not saying that they're not those kind of people, but you're seeing it in glimpses, you're seeing it come very fast when necessarily you don't see the work that they had to put in prior to getting there.
It's everyone saying, oh, I could do that.
Exactly. And I think that's kind of, you know, for me, I was victim to it as well when I first started out doing this, and still to a certain extent am now. In my career, where I get caught up and I have to realize that, like touching on what Manny said, this is a process, and I think through your process is understanding what your purpose is as a coach. You know, everyone has their purpose as a coach or has their purpose in life. You have to understand that purpose, own that purpose, and work through that purpose as much as you can every single day. And last but not least is being patient. I think that, you know, touching on what I started with is we all want it right now. We all play victim to it every day. We want instant success. We want to do well. We feel like we deserve it, me kind of factor. But I think the less that you focus on those kind of things, you focus on the big picture, which is the players. You know, if there was no players, we wouldn't be coaching. We wouldn't have a job. We wouldn't be here. So I think the more that you focus on the players, focus on their development, focus on them having a good time and understanding and learning the game the way that I think that you wanted to learn the game as well, and also the way that you enjoyed learning the game as a player previously. I think that that's where you can have the, you know, your success, and even if it's not on the largest scale, I think even the smallest things, you know, just like a compliment, like we were talking about this a couple weeks ago, just in general, like when we train a client and just getting a basic compliment, like, you know, really appreciate what you're doing with my son and daughter and the direction that you've pushed them in, and they just really look up to you. I think that is more of a success in getting a job. You know, yeah, at least for me, and that's what I've learned to understand and feel as a coach or as a trainer, moving forward as, you know, as just a young coach in the game.
Anyone else want to touch base on that a little bit?
Yeah, no, I just like to piggyback on what Pat said. Like, definitely, like whenever you get a response, like, because like you said, it's a thankless job. But when you get that text message from a parent or even from the player, where it's like, you know, we really appreciate it. And I know, and I've seen your phone, like you've definitely got it a number of times. But just being able to hear that from current clients and then previous clients and players, like it kind of like makes the job worth
rejuvenates you.
Yeah,
it
like
re-empowers you to want to do more.
Yeah.
And there is great parents. There really is. You know, they appreciate it. They make you know it. And then there's just, you know, there's bad parents out there that expect it, and hey, you signed up for this and that's your job. It's like, well,
I think you're just a tad misdirected. Yeah, just misunderstood a little bit.
Jeremy, I'm gonna throw it over to you in here and really start this off, and I think we can really have a good debate about this. But you see it at the NBA level, you see it at the college level right now with the transfer list that's like 375 kids. Is there loyalty in sports? And should there be loyalty in sports?
Is there? No. Should there be? Definitely. I think when you, from time you're a child to the time you're done playing, like you've heard so much about being this great teammate and doing these things and trusting your coaches and like all these words that we use to create these programs and coaches that we want to choose. I don't see how loyalty isn't one of them. But again, I think it's a two-way street between whether it's coaches, whether it's kids, and I think that as adults and coaches, I think that we've allowed kids to navigate the way they navigate because there was some adult or some high-ranking person or somebody who saw it to be okay. And I think so now, given the power of social media and more travel ball teams and all this power that somebody wants to hold, it's like, I mean, we're human, we sin, so we know there's this pull. Even if all five of us want to do something great and be unselfish, and like there's gonna be somebody like, well, I'll be selfish then since y'all want to be. Like the power is gonna be placed somewhere, and I just feel like on the loyalty tip, it's just like it's tough. It makes it tough, like because if you want to, like if you're really genuinely a loyal person, and then you're amongst a situation where people are being disloyal. It's like, well, how do you navigate that space when there's nothing but disloyalty going around you, and everybody's just looking out for themselves? And I personally just don't think it's healthy. I think we're not teaching kids enough. Like I think parents, not all, but I think there's a good portion of them who are just uneducated about how this thing could go. We hear kids say all the time, like, my uncle said I should shoot the ball every time I touch it. My mom said this. Like, okay, well, where does your uncle play? What does he know? Like, what is his foundation of basketball? Like, he just watched the NBA and see Kobe jacking all the time. Like, that why he think you should shoot the ball all the time? Like, he's doing you a disservice. And that's my thing. It's like, well, as a human, it's like, yeah, that's my uncle though. Like, I get that, but that don't mean in this that he's right. It's like as growing up as becoming an adult and a young man and realizing like, you know, my mom and dad said all these things based on how things were in the early 90s. And we'd be naive, again, to be thinking that by the time our kid is 5 years old or 6 years old, that we should raise them in the exact same manner and way that our parents raised us. Like, times are different. Times are changing, and I do agree we have to evolve and grow with it, but the loyalty thing for me personally, like, that's a tough deal for me personally. People might feel differently, but as far as loyalty goes, like, I personally don't care that 10 of your best friends are on Instagram and they hopping around on travel ball teams. I don't care. That don't mean that's right. And I think as long as we fight for what's right and we fight for within the spirit of loyalty, I think we'd be okay. But I just don't think we're in that space.
I think it comes down to trust. I think it comes down to, you know, you as a parent, you as a player, you got to be surrounded by people that you trust. And if you don't trust, go. And if you do trust, sit back, ask the right questions, watch, and learn. And I always say it to guys when they come and ask, hey, coach, you know, what should I do? I always say, stay on the paved path. Stay on the path and follow in the footsteps of the guys that came before you because it worked. The minute you start to go off on that dirt road, you're looking for a way to get back to the paved path. And in this basketball game, that window is so small. That opportunity is so small. You go off on that dirt road and try to find your own way back, you get lost. Or you find out that road doesn't have a connecting piece back to that paved path. And so I think it comes down to a lot of trust. I think it comes down to, desperation. When parents start to get desperate, they make desperate choices. And I think that contributes to what we conceive to be unloyal. I think you gotta kind of phrase it on different levels. And you know, when you get to the NBA, you can't say loyalty or unloyal or loyal. That's a business. That severely is a opportunity where I'm deciding on millions of dollars and what's in my best interest as my company versus what's your best interest as your company. And that's a whole different discussion that I think we then try to find a way to reapply to youth sports. I mean, the reason you play youth basketball is because A, you love basketball, B, you want to get better, and C, you have dreams of one day hopefully playing college basketball, which inevitably could lead to one day having a dream of playing in the NBA. But you got to take those steps first. It's one step at a time. I think as a culture and as a basketball world right now, we've gone from learning to dribble to saying I'm going to be in the NBA without figuring out what the heck those steps are and who are the people who could guide me through those steps in a proper fashion and still pull the reins or speed up. And it comes down to that. Do you agree? You want to add to that?
I think Tony, you hit on the head with the first point that you made about love the game. You know, I think that a lot of kids that play basketball these days, I don't think they generally love the game, but they love what basketball brings and comes with.
The clout.
The clout, you know, the high salaries, the fame,
Gear.
the likes, the gear.
The difference between being a basketball player and a player that likes basketball.
And likes basketball. I think that's literally the core of a lot of problems we face. You know, a lot of kids, they don't generally love basketball, you know, but they like what it brings.
Is there an honesty of assessment that's out there? And do you think that some of this disloyalty or the problem that coaches encounter on a daily basis with parents is the fact that there's no one actually being 100% honest with where their kid is at right now,
Yes.
where they could
Yes.
potentially get to? Because so often I hear, oh, that kid's a pro. That kid can't go left yet. That kid can't make a left-handed layup. I see him come back to his right every time. He ain't a pro yet. A pro can make a left-handed layup. A pro could do things. There's not everyone's not a pro. There's the look test. There's the workout test. There's the commitment test. There's a lot of tests that have to be checked off before a kid could even be a college player. And then kids really look past. I know one of our viewers, Mark, had a question last week, something relating to Canadian basketball, university basketball versus the NCAA. Can you just read out what that question was, Mark? So, I mean, the assessment tool that needs to be done is really, you know, where are you? At what stage of your career? Where have you played? What have you accomplished? If you've gone to AAU tournaments your whole life and played in front of 100 coaches every weekend and you don't have offers, you need to look in the mirror. You need to look in the mirror and say, did I make the right choice? Did I work on the right things? And am I in the wrong environment for my skill level, perhaps? Because if they ain't calling you, then it's the wrong guys looking at you. And that's the reals. And kids and parents don't want to hear that, but that really is the real. If you're in grade 12 or 5th year and you don't have offers and you're telling Canadian schools no, and you're telling D2s no, and you're looking at JUCO as hell no, real basketball players don't go, then you're really doing a disservice to yourself. That you really need to look in the mirror and say, at what level am I really being wanted at? Because I believe there's got to be a want. If there's no want, you're dead.
And
You're dead.
Especially with the honesty deal. Like, I'm not a parent, and I pray that I never become that parent for my child. I feel like if you're gonna be a parent or uncle or cousin or mentor or somebody with power that you know a kid listens to what comes out of your mouth, it's my hope that you educate yourself on what you're leading them in, not just off sheer emotion and what you want to see this young person become, and feeding them the wrong when it's not fit for them. Like, even if their best friend is top 10 in the nation, like, that don't mean that he needs to try to go play in such and such event just because his friend is playing in it and they got all the clout and all the such and such. Like, that's not good for him. Like, and you have to be okay with that. And I don't think people are okay with that. They want their kid to be compared to this kid and to that kid. And, well, he's getting this many shots and that many shots. And, well, why does it matter? First off, because if the game was long enough to give your kid 20 shots and the other kid 20 shots who deserves 20 shots, he's going to go 12 for 20. Your kid's going to go 4 for 20. And then there's your answer.
I said it to you the other day, and I said, I think we had this conversation. I said, man, I still remember back to an AAU tournament. I'm not going to say any names of a player. He's out there hooping, not doing well. I sub him out, and the conversation with the parent after was, I'm actually saving your kid because he out there 0 for 20, and coaches are looking like, man, y'all said this dude could shoot. Like, no, I'm not going to let you get to 0 for 20. I'm not going to let you look bad. We're going to get back in the lab and we're going to work on it and we're going to try to fix this. And you're going to end up getting something. But, geez, you're doing yourself a disservice going out there and hooping like that. And I think it's hard right now. It truly is hard. Exposure
is at a premium right now.
If you got one live period, if you need to be seen, be seen.
Even outside of live periods, like YouTube, like I live on YouTube, so even outside of live period, I don't need a live period to know whether your kid is good or not. Like I can go on his Instagram, I can go on YouTube, I talk to enough people. Like we're privy to enough social media and internet connection and all this other stuff. We don't live in dial-up world anymore. Like so, as far as exposure goes and knowing, like I'm a coach and I hope to coach for a long time. Like you think I need to go to a live
It's your job to figure out who good and who not.
I need to go to a live period to know whether your son is good or not.
Yeah, and I think
No.
I think moving this basketball needle around is I really think, and we touched base earlier, is I think the power is going to come back to the high school. The snapshots are, hey, get out on that stage and the platform, and there's nothing wrong with those platforms. They're great. They serve a purpose. They have a need. They provide a service, and coaches go and they look at it. But you look at coaches, I'm not going to say any of the circuit names, but there's certain level coaches that are just not going to attend those events because they know they're also looking for players that are not at that level. They know that they need to recruit a certain level of players that might not be, they can't get in the mix with a top 10 player, a top 20 player, a top 50 player. They need to get in a mix with this group of guys that can hoop. They might not be on that circuit. They might be. But I know from past experiences, and I know from our high school, it's hard to get, and no disrespect to college coaches, but it's hard to get college coaches to look at your 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th guy that are D1 guys because they can't get past the enamor, or that might even be the wrong name, but they can't get past how good your top 3 or 4 are and wish they could have them when really they should be offering and recruiting the 4, 5, 6, 7 guy. And we see that all the time here.
Yeah,
we see it where, hey, I hope we could sneak in with that guy and just, maybe he'll slip through the cracks. Well, okay, that's cool. I really appreciate that. I truly do. And sometimes that happens, and sometimes kids want to play below the level that they could play at to be the man. I get it. But at the same time, there's these kids that are going to run through a brick wall for you. They're going to care. They're going to have quality, and they're going to be committed to you for 4 years. I mean, unless there's coaching changes and all of that stuff. But I think that's a strong thing that we face here. Last thing, we have questions from the viewers. If you do have questions, make sure you hit up our YouTube page, hit us up directly, and we'll add some of your questions into next week's session. But one of them was, and I'm gonna kind of remix the question a little until Mark gets back. But it was about Canadian basketball, about U Sport, that's good damn basketball. It truly is. There's no disrespect to U Sport. You really should be looking at that. If you have Division I's that are knocking at your door, great. You're going to take free. You're going to take opportunity. You're going to take it. But if there's U Sport schools that are showing you love and they're showing you interest and they're contacting you and they're going out of their way, you need to listen. You need to respect it. Those same guys are the guys that are truly grinding it out to get players. And the level of basketball and the quality of basketball, and you look at Dave Smart winning. You look at University of Calgary sneaking in there and winning. You look at everyone's really escalating the level of basketball here, and it's not a joke. You look at Division I schools that are coming up here for their summer tours. These Canadian schools are competing and winning and taking teams, albeit the preseason, they're hooping. I mean, what you just came back recently on a visit to a U Sport school. You look at the level of recruiting and the level of preparation.
No question.
Where are we at in Canada in terms of U Sport versus NCAA?
I think that first and foremost, I think the coaches at the U Sport level, there's some exceptional basketball minds, and I think they do it because they love it. not because, you know, they're collecting high salaries or, you know, they do it because they love it. And in terms of the level we're at, you know, we had one of our guys take a visit over to us youth support school, and, you know, it felt like it was like a Division I visit with the facilities and the trainers and the way they do their program, you know. And you kind of hit on the head, you know, youth sports in a great spot right now. A lot of guys go on to play professionally from youth sport schools, you know, and so there's no lack of talent, you know, great basketball minds, and it's the option that, you know, a lot of Canadian kids should definitely pursue, no question.
Absolutely. Pat?
And if I'm not mistaken, didn't they just start that pro league? Did you guys see that? Like the thing that Terry's coaching in?
Oh, I think there's a new
like
summer CBL or something.
CBL, that's what I was talking
We
about.
could get into that too.
No, but that's what I mean. Like the avenues now that you have through U Sport, it's you know, it's kind of endless. Like these guys are getting opportunities that, you know, most of us wouldn't have thought you would have got from a U Sport look. I remember being a player, you know, that and you were my coach, and I was the kind of guy that said, you know what, I don't want to.
I was only like 16 at the time.
Like I didn't want to play for a program like that. I wanted to go to the States, but you know what, the best option for me at that point was really looking towards, you know, going down that avenue. Yeah. And that's what you try to, you know, once again, going back to loyalty in sports, you know, you were very straight, like honest and straight up with me. And, you know, I was loyal to all the way to the end. And you know, you told me straight up, this is the avenue, this is the path that you need to go on. And you know, as a player, you know, it's hugely respected, and definitely, you know, led me on the right path moving forward. But just in general, like youth sport has become one of the, you know, I think the best styles of basketball that you can see out there. And you know, you're getting competition against American schools. That, you know, it's amazing to see what these guys are getting a chance to do and showcase themselves as well.
Absolutely. Mark, what were some of the viewer questions? We want to kind of end with one or two viewer questions from the last segment. I just want to know, Jeremy, why the hell do you have a banana on the table, bro?
Because I'm trying to eat healthier. So I got to give my daily intake of fruits.
The one you passed through before, which you might have already touched on, was what do you say to the players who are D1 or bust, Canadian guys who can contribute to a good Canadian program, who would rather play JUCO or something that doesn't fit?
Who was the viewer?
Darnell Samuels.
Darnell Samuels. I mean, I think hopefully we touch base on that. It's D1 or bust is oftentimes D1 until you can't make it, and then you're looking at other options. Definitely, I think, you know, if these kids are being recruited at the U Sport level and not at the NCAA Division I level, Division II even, I mean, they got to take this serious. They have an opportunity to extend their basketball career at that point, and that's the way I look at it. Is D1 or bust means you ain't playing after that. D1 or you know, high school to U Sport, you're getting excessive amounts of years adding on to your career with a chance to grow, learn new systems, new opportunities, continue to develop, and have a chance to still potentially play pro overseas. And you mentioned that. Yeah. So, Darnell, hopefully we answered that. If you wanted to kind of have us clarify anything, hit us back, and we'll clarify that.
You got another one from him as well. How do you guys cultivate a culture of competitiveness? What kind of personalities do you look for, and what do you need to play at high school prep level basketball?
So that's actually a really good one, because we sat around this table at the beginning of this year, and I know TV and Jeremy and other coaches that have prep schools really sit down and try to answer that question. And for us, it came down to one word: culture. It's changing the culture here, changing the expectation, and coming up with something. And we came up with a motto: 30 strong. And that was every single player, there you go. Wasn't even planned. Every single player, every single coach in here, we're together. No matter what, we stick together. Yeah. We're 30 strong. We went through a series of events that proved that we need each other, and we created a culture that, you know, really started from day one, on the day that the kids moved in. When you're building a team, you're really looking for attitude. You're looking for winners. You're looking for guys that are committed. You're looking for guys that have ownership, and then you need solid leadership. And I think when you have that, then you start to see results that you could carry over onto the floor. and hopefully results that take you through wins and losses, and learn from your losses, and get back and work harder on the wins. So, do you guys want to add to
just
that?
touching on a little bit is it's kind of to touch on what he was asking is it's a sink or swim kind of mentality that we had with 30 Strong. You know, it's either you do it or you don't, and if you don't, this isn't meant for you.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of it, like you were touching on, it's the culture. We as coaches kind of put these guys through a lot of situations that they weren't used to. That were stressful for them, that involved a lot of sacrifice, and I think that's where you find the true competitor. Yeah. That because it's like I said, it's the sink or swim. You're either going to put up with it, or it's a wrap. You're going to quit.
You're either going to yell, "We worked on this," or you're not built for this.
Exactly. So
and that comes from this side of it. It's we worked on this, and he's yelling, "You're not built for this." Yeah. And I think that's really what it came down to this year is you figure out whether you like basketball or you love basketball.
Through your suffering, you'll figure out who you really are and if this is what you're meant to be doing. And at the end of the day, if this is what you want to do, and even if you haven't done it before, if for example, Manny puts me through something where I feel absolutely distressed and I hate it, but this is something I want, regardless of what the situation is that he's putting me in, I'm gonna dog my way through.
Does it not go back to the word trust again? I mean,
we got to trust the guys that are in front of you.
We have all the talent around the table.
If I believe in him and I trust in him, I'm going to go through a wall for Manny.
Yeah, and the thing is the background that we have here, and again, I'm talking strictly from our prep school perspective. Division I, Division II, OCAA. We've been there. We've played at every level. We've touched on things that winners do. We've seen cultures of both winning and losing. So it's like if you don't want to listen to it and you want to try to reinvent this wheel yourself, you really just steered off that paved path. And you're trying to do it. And we talk about that all the time. You can't force kids to do what they don't want to do. Right. And you at some point have to say either they're a basketball player or they're someone that just is playing basketball. I know, Jeremy, look in your eye, you want to say something. You're staring at the mic like it's about to fight, but what?
No, I mean, I agree with everything said, but I think even with culture, like, it only goes so far, and I think you're only as good at it as the people that you have in your situation. So it's like you have to have a group of kids that actually want to be coached, that were raised the right way, that was, that had values that were instilled in them from young ages, and kids that just want it, like. They just have to want it. Like, you can't want for them more. Like, it can't be a case where you want more for the kids than they want for themselves. Yeah. And I think when you hit that wall, they're always going to fall short of what you want them to attain because they don't look at it that way. I think that comes into enough, and it might not be.
Recalibrate, get back and see if you can reach them in another way. Try to remotivate them. I think it's a continuous cycle of re-engagement, reapplication. And trying to refigure out every single kid, because every single kid's different. That's one thing that we all sit in here and talk about every single day. Not everyone could open a book and then recite back to you their interpretation of what that book was. It's going to be a different story. And every single one of these kids is a different book with a different story, a different beginning, a different middle, and a different end. And everyone's got their own path. And when you apply that to basketball, those are the paths. It's like... I don't know if you guys are too young, but when I grew up, there used to be choose your own adventure books where you read a chapter and then it says, if you want to jump off a bridge, go to chapter 4. If you want to drive in a car around the mountain, go to chapter 7. And every time you read the book, you could choose something different and it has a different outcome. Mm-hmm. These kids, in my opinion, come to chapters in their life where they make decisions. Do I listen? Do I not listen? Who do I listen to? And they pick a chapter and they hope that whatever they picked has a happy ending, and that's I think that's a byproduct of the environment we're in. So hopefully that answers it for Darnell a little. Was there any other questions?
I got a good one here. So from Chelsea Wilson, 371. This might have touched on something you guys were talking about, but if YouTube is all coaches need to see, why would my son come to Athlete Institute for $40,000 a year?
In order to improve that YouTube video. I mean, You could look at YouTube. People post up there. I mean, I've seen people actually send a YouTube video. And when we say all it needs to see is, you could actually see a YouTube video and they post missed free throws. They miss defensive rotations. They miss, turning over the ball because that's what they think is good. That's what they felt was, that's me playing. Yeah. And I'm going to let you elaborate it on a little, but I mean, you come here to get better every single day. You come here to find out the exact same things that we just talked about. Do you like basketball? Do you love basketball? Do you want the exposure? Do you want the opportunity? Do you want the coaching? Are you open to the coaching? And do you want the commitment level that it's going to take to try to make it? And then as a player and as a parent, are you open to the real talks of where your son's level is at from the get-go?
I think to answer to the spirit of that question, I think we have the best staff in all of Canada as far as prep level goes. But when I say that, I more so mean like kids. I was speaking to the value of what kids put clout into, and you don't need to go to the EYBL for me to know that you can play or not. I feel my basketball acumen as a coach, and from the time I played organized ball since I was 6 till now, is strong enough to be able to look at a YouTube video or some clips or some highlights or whatever you want to put together and know if this kid's basketball pedigree can fit at a certain level or not.
And then even if you're unsure, because we literally get, I mean, Alex be coming in here every day with different links and video clips of YouTube kids. And then we sit here and say, man, look who he's playing against. Look who he's playing against. And I think that in itself, yeah, you could say, oh, he's got skill, but there's no one over 5'8". He's not being challenged. He's not being pushed. How good is he really? When you put him into a competitive environment, what type of a player is he at that point? Yeah. Can he compete? Can he stand on his own still? Does he have the leadership skills? It's easy to lead a group of guys that you're just so much better than, but can you lead and can you step up in an environment where you're pushed, challenged, and tested on a daily basis?
Yeah, when you Jay. When you get here, I feel like just a lot of guys get exposed. There's a few players that we've talked about before that are in our program right now that were, quote unquote, the man back at their school, and whether it was we saw them play or it was through a YouTube clip, an Instagram clip, whatever the case may have been for them to get here, that gave us that original interest. But then once they get here, it's a totally different ballgame, like you were saying.
This is every day.
Yeah, and once
can
again,
you wake up at 5:45 every single morning, and can you do
that's what
the
comes
things
part
these
of
guys do?
Of coming here, and part of the expenses you're getting every day. Us as trainers, you're getting a staff of coaches that are
committed,
just as committed, if not more committed. More committed. I'll attest to this. We're more committed than the players are. And touching on what Jay said, is we want it genuinely more than our players do. That's just how we are. I think that's kind of how we were as players, and how as we progress as players into coaches or trainers, we kind of understood it a lot more.
And I sit here and I say, like, I look around the group. I tweeted out this morning, I'm surrounded by greatness. I truly believe it in every aspect of my life. I feel like I'm surrounded by great people. And when I sit here and look at the commitment level of what we do here, there's nobody in here that doesn't want it more than someone else. And I think for you guys to be successful in this world, in this basketball life, you have to want it more than everyone else, because you got to succeed. And you got to be the best person that you could be without touching and challenging your integrity and your loyalty and your commitment to this game and to what your goals that you set are. So I think for me, and to go back to the viewer that asked the question, is you're getting a level of commitment that's unheard of from a group of guys that love basketball, do basketball, are basketball, and if you want your kid to get better, there's no better place to be than right here with these guys. Yeah, and I truly mean that.
If that YouTube video ain't good enough, then
he's at the wrong
exactly
school.
why you bring them here.
Yeah.
But I feel like, man, like at the end of the day, it goes so much beyond basketball.
It is.
Think about it.
All these kids,
it's
everything.
You learn how to be disciplined. You learn the value of hard work. You learn how to be a teammate. You learn responsibility. You grow as a person, and that's stuff that
you gotta make your own bed.
When the
Hey.
rules, when the ball stops bouncing,
It seems to be the hardest one to apply.
Right. When the ball stops bouncing, those skills you're gonna take for the remainder of your life.
I mean,
So,
how many guys have
it
we
goes
actually
beyond
got
this.
in here? And I know it's outside of basketball and it goes back to that, but first time ever doing laundry.
Right.
Yeah.
First time having to
Yeah.
go to Walmart and buy body wash and deodorant in order to shower after practices. How many times do we have to remind people hygiene, hygiene, hygiene? Like they're learning life skills.
Life skills.
It's basketball. It's life. It's
Help them
everything.
grow
It's
up.
commitment.
Throw out their garbage.
And then they get to go home on weekends for most of them, and the parents see a difference in their kid.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's the level of here. Mark is.
One last question here. Do you think the AAU scene has negatively contributed to high school basketball in terms of the AAU lack of practices and transfer culture?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's this. I mean, I'm on both sides of the fence. From an AAU standpoint, I've been there where 12 guys fly into a city and we hoop and you take a timeout and that's a practice. You have five 30-second practices a game and you hope that you can, input
Practice hard enough to
five
win.
practices.
Practice hard enough to win.
Yeah, and so it's like that's the AAU culture, but that's not everywhere.
Yeah.
And I think every single and that's why it's hard to paint AAUs by one brush is in every single area it's different. You could be in Tennessee and all 10 of your players are all in the same area and can practice every week and you do it all year long. You could be anywhere in the world and that happens. But then you could be in a situation where, similar to Canada, when I refer back to those teams where like 12 guys fly in and play, they're all Canadian, but they're all at 12 different high schools in the States. And they want to play for their home AAU team. And you look at it, is that's a byproduct of them feeling like they have to go somewhere else. And that's part of the reason that my belief in Athlete Institute of putting as many players together can carry over into the summer and other environments do the exact same thing. But I think the lack of practice in AAU contributes to the just do what you want mentality. I think that the high school basketball scene in Canada, I think, is truly getting better because I think there's great coaches at the prep school and the high school level that are putting their time in and making a concerted effort to keep kids home. And we got to keep doing that because the brand of basketball that's here is so good. It truly is good. And I think, Jeremy, you could attest to how much more competitive it probably even is than what you thought leaving America to come here in terms of our rules, our leagues, the exposure. I don't care if it's the OSBA, the MPA. I don't care if it's OFSA. I don't care what it is. The brand of basketball generally has kids in the gym trying to develop and getting better here.
No, that's for sure. Like me being here, and like you said, outside of the OSBA and just seeing kids and seeing talent, and like I hope to be able. It's my hope that I can recruit here for the rest of my career. Like it's a hotbed, and I think when I compare it to LA, it's like I'm looking at it and it's like all the kids out here are kind of like in one centralized area, and it's a lot of kids that are really good versus being at home where you can go to up to the Bay, you can be in Southern California, you can be in Riverside, in the Empire, you can be on the coast. You like. And I just think up here is just more centralized, and there's a lot of talent in this centralized area and place.
Well, I'm going to jump in there then based on that is we better have 10 offers a year wherever you end up from all y'all. It's if it's such a hot, and it truly is a hotbed, guys. I mean, let's call it spade a spade. Canadian ballers are hooping right now. And whether they're here or whether they're in the States, they're making a name. They're sustaining the name and they're growing the game. And I think with that being said is like we're just on another level right now of setting the bar for each other. The guys that came before set the bar. The guys that are coming up are trying to raise the bar. And you look at the younger generation of kids right now, those dudes is hooping. Those guys are putting in the work. There's some great programs out there that are focusing in on development of the younger kids, and those kids are killing. So it's hard to imagine that it's going to stop or slow down. I think it's just going to continue to grow. I think what it's really our detriment in Canada is going to be how we could stop all all the bullshit fighting amongst programs and all the conflicts and all the shit that happens in Canada. That's going to be our downfall.
Y'all had to turn American in that deal.
It truly has. It's flipped to, we're always 5 years behind from a basketball perspective. And I'm not saying now, but this is what's been happening in America in regards to AAU teams and everyone fighting for a shoe deal or this or that or this clout, or to be able to say these players came from my program. At the end of the day, the damn kid made it. Mm-hmm. Let's support him. Let's be happy for him. Yeah. You know, and let's push the next kids to want to be that kid. And that's all that really truly matters from a parent's perspective. It's okay. Make your kid want to be better than the best. You should shoot for that. You don't want to be better than the worst. So that's okay, but everyone just got to start getting along, and everyone got to start putting in the work to try to build our systems that feed our national team, our systems that feed our provincial team, our systems that feed the AAU clubs, our systems that feed the high school. If everyone works together, the best players are all in those systems, and there's enough for everyone. There truly is, in my opinion. You guys?
No, I think that kind of, two teams, for example, that have done a great job of that over the past couple of years, and touching on, we talked about Dave Smart just very briefly, was, Ottawa Next Level, Ottawa Guardsmen. They've been feeder teams for Ottawa University or Carleton for years now. Whether it's, and I'm not saying they're providing full rosters, but some of the kids from that program, they're getting them together, and by the time it's U19, some of those guys are seeing off. A vast majority of the team going U Sport, or some of them just staying, in the province and going there.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, when you really look at it, we sit around here in our recrecruiting meeting. Ottawa's a damn hotbed. Oh, yeah. Ottawa's a hotbed. Montreal's a hotbed. Let's not trick anyone, man. Toronto ballers are hooping, but they coming. They're there. They're on that stage.
Ottawa and Montreal.
Ottawa and Montreal are really hooping, and I think Nova Scotia, if you need guards, you're looking at Nova Scotia because they got some guards out there. So, I mean, we're sharing our secrets, but
I went to Ottawa and Montreal. It's not popping like that.
He wants you to stay away. But anyways, great conversations today. Absolutely. I think everyone's getting a lot more comfortable. I think hopefully we could continue with the interaction with the viewers. I think answering your guys' questions and allowing you guys to pick everyone's brain in this room, I think is huge. And reach out on YouTube, reach out on I think this is going to be on Apple Music as well as Spotify. So you could get us on all streaming. We do the IG Live thing, but we're also
on IG.
We're also hitting it up on all the other media platforms as well. Let's continue to grow the game. Thank you guys. Let's get back at it for another week. Bow Steel All Canadian game coming up.
Yes,
Get to see Canada's best hooping this week, both boys and girls, junior and senior. It's going to be an amazing week, and we'll have some stuff to talk about next week about that, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Peace. We out.
Thanks, everybody.